Hey guys, hope you are doing amazing. TJ Atkinson in the building, your finance coach. So we're going to be talking about something very interesting today, and this is something that's highly requested from many of you, and it's how to buy your first property. Now, just to give you some overview, I'm a property investor myself, so I've had my fair share of buying properties. Now, it's a long time ago since I bought my first property, so I'm probably going to refer back to some notes so I can give you some up-to-date information on how to buy your first property. Before we get straight into it, make sure you like, comment and subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you are made aware every single time I post a video that might just change your life. Just before we get into it, one more thing. So I have a program, it's a finance program called the Breakthrough Program, and it's a finance course for 10-year-olds to 21-year-olds. So if you have someone that fits into that age range and you want them to do better and you want them to know more about finance, money management and growing their money, then make sure you click on the link below. So let's get straight into this. So how do you buy your first home? It's not as easy as it sounds. Most people think, hey, I found a home. Mr. Agent, Mr. Landlord, I want to buy your home. Let's shake hands. Let's swap houses. You take my money, I take your home. Hey, that's not it. It's a very, very long process, and it's about 15 steps that you've got to take. And at this specific moment, it could take anything from 1 month, which will be very quick, to about 5 months. So if you're planning on buying, you need to get your things together, get your finance in order, get your credit in order, and start the process now. Now, there is a certain advantage with regards to the stamp duty situation, but again, we can talk about that in another video. So how do you buy your first property? Number one, start building your appetite, which means start speaking to people who have purchased already. Start getting some insight, start building your network. It makes sense to always speak to someone who's bought, even if it's online, even if it's a family member, even if it's a colleague at work, because they're going to be able to help you with certain important parts, such as a recommendation to a credible solicitor or a recommendation to a credible broker. So start with that, start networking. Now, I don't mean go out to networking events, I simply mean start talking to people about your desire to buy. Now, be very careful. There are going to be some people that say, hey, don't buy, the market is crazy. Hey, do buy. So again, do buy. I like that. Do buy a property. You've got to know what you are ready to do. So you say, hey, TJ, I'm ready to buy a property. Number one, start networking. Number two, start viewing properties. Now again, this is very important. You've got an ideal sort of house in mind. So you start viewing those properties to determine whether that is the type of house you would like to buy. So again, you're viewing properties to get a better understanding, to start noticing certain things that you might need to look out for. So you're looking for maybe the damp, the neighborhood, you're looking for the crime rate in the area. These are things that people don't think about. Number one, you want to check the crime rate in the area before you buy a property, especially if you're moving to an area with your kids and your family. You want to know what the crime rate is like, because these tiny things will affect your insurance and your policy. So start viewing properties, building your appetite, getting hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. Number three, find yourself a broker. This is why you go back to stage number one. That's been speaking to people. You talk to people, you say, hey, who did you use? Who was your broker? Who helped you get your mortgage? It's very important that you get a broker. Do not go to your bank. Do not go to your building society. Do not go to do not go to your bank or your building society, because they're going to have one product and that's going to be their product. There's a benefit to using a broker. A broker usually has access to most deals that are available on the market, which means there are some lenders, so there are going to be some mortgages that are suitable for your individual situation. Whereas if you go to your specific bank, they're going to promote their products, and their products might not be the best for you. You want to go to a third-party person who has your interest at heart, and your interest is simply making sure that they get you the best product available on the market. So go back to number one, start networking, asking people that you know that's bought a property. Send me a message, I'll send you the details of my broker, completely free. And you can contact them and start building that conversation. Now, a broker is an integral part, which means you've got to be totally open and honest with your broker. The broker is going to ask you some preliminary... Your broker is going to ask you some why can't I say that word? Your broker is going to ask you some preliminary questions. They're going to ask you some startup questions to find out more about you. What's your situation? What's your current salary? What have you got in savings? How is the deposit? Is it going to be gifted? Are you going to save? Have you saved it already? Are you ready to buy? They're going to ask you a series of questions to find out what's the best possible situation for you. Now, you've got to listen attentively because your broker will bring different products and different concepts to the forefront. So they might say Help to Buy might be the most suitable for you, and we'll do a video about that another day. They might say you've got to put down a 10% deposit. They might tell you what's likely at this specific moment, if you're not doing Help to Buy, that you've probably got to put down a 15% deposit, which is absolutely crazy. Especially if you're going to buy a property in London, you've got to find 15% to put down. So these are the conversations a broker will have with you because he or she wants to understand the best possible action for you. Your broker will work with you with regards to creating something called an AIP. So that's an agreement in principle. This is very important. This is why you need a broker. Again, your bank can also give that to you if you decide you want to go with your bank. But again, you've heard what I've said. Work with a broker because they have access to more products and more favorable products because they've got access to every or most lenders and most products on the market. An agreement in principle simply means, hey, based on some basic checks, this is what the bank is willing to lend you based on your income, based on your deposit, based on some initial checks. The bank is willing to lend you X amount of money. Now you take that AIP and then you go on your second round of viewings. So remember, you did your viewings the first time just to build your appetite, just to say, hey, do you know what? I think I am ready to buy a house, just to go and have a look at some houses. Now the second time round, you're now shopping for a house that you might want to live in. That's really important. But you've got that piece of paper that says, hey, Mr. Agent or Mr. Landlord, I am a serious buyer. I'm ready to buy. The bank says at the basic level that they are willing to lend me X amount of money, and it says it right there on my AIP. So open the doors and let me start viewing. Now, a lot of agents prefer that you have an AIP in place because what that simply does is it reaffirms or reassures them that you are not wasting their time, that you've done the initial legwork, that you are mortgageable, that you are worthy of credit. So it means they can spend their time going around and viewings. They can give you their sales, they can give you their sales spiel. They can encourage you to buy. They can spend time on you because at the end of the day, they're going to get their commission. But if you don't have an AIP, they might, in many cases, just throw you aside because they've got other people who are one step ahead ready to buy. So remember, you want to find yourself a broker and get your AIP as soon as possible. Now you start going on viewings. This is the exciting part. This is the really fun part. This is the part where you probably go a little bit crazy. You start viewing properties. In fact, look, I'll give you some examples of myself. I think when I was buying my first property, this was pre an AIP. And that's why I'd say that AIP is very important because you don't know what the bank is willing to lend you. So you go and start viewing properties. I started viewing properties for 750,000 to £1 million, not knowing that the bank was never going to lend me that amount of money based on my deposit, based on my credit. So you want to get your AIP in place. It tells you how much you can afford plus your deposit. Then you can start shopping for homes in your budget, within your budget. So now let's say the bank is willing to lend you £200,000 and you're going to put down a deposit. You know that you can go and buy a house around 220,000 or 250,000 pound or so. So those are the sort of places you start shopping. You don't want to get yourself carried away and start viewing properties that are completely out of your budget. You're just going to waste your time and everyone else's time. You find a property. You find a lovely property, you fall in love with that property, it fits within the scheme that you're going to use. Are you going to use a 10% mortgage? Are you going to use a 15% mortgage? Is it going to be Help to Buy? Is it going to be shared ownership? You find your property, you put an offer in if you're working directly with the landlord or if you're working with the estate agent. So you say, hey, agent, I love this property. I would love to buy this property. In many cases, the agent will say you should pop them an email so they have something on record, and you would put your official offer via email to them. Also, it can be done via the phone. Now, bear in mind that if you've got a very tricky agent and they're working on behalf of the landlord, then they might attempt to get you to increase your offer. This is where I stand on this. Never pay the asking price. Now again, I can't say never, it depends on you totally, just with me. Even if it's £1 off, get in the habit of negotiating. Remember this, and this is very important. Profit is made in the purchase and not the sale. Now, of course, that's me talking to you from an investor point of view. When you are buying a property mainly as an investment, you are buying the property and making your profit at the beginning of the purchase and not the end. And again, that's a completely different video. And if you want me to explain that in further details, leave me a comment in the section and I will do a video explaining the logic that we as property investors use. Make sure you've liked and subscribed, guys. Make sure you liked and subscribed, okay? Cool, so let's get back into this. So you've put your offer in. Now I want to give you another tip. Never attend a viewing for a property that you like with multiple people. That's one thing that no one will tell you about because it's such a small, tiny thing, but it plays a major part in your negotiation ability. Many a times agents will try and do group viewings with the intention of building that frenzy so that you feel that you can't negotiate better. So you feel that, hey, if they're asking for £300,000 for the house and there were 10 other people that were here, then of course you can't negotiate. But that's not the truth. You've got to know what you're willing to pay and be willing to add 10% or minus 10% in your offer. Always start with the lower offer, and the worst that will ever happen is the agent or the landlord will say, hey, I cannot accept the offer, and you inch your way forward. Never pay the asking price, or never pay the asking price when it's demanded. So let's say your offer has now been accepted. The next stage is to secure your mortgage. You go back to your broker. You say to the broker, hey, Mr. Broker, Mrs. Broker, I found a property, I've put an offer in. The landlord has accepted my offer, or the owner has accepted my offer. What happens next? So your broker is going to work with you with regards to some illustrations. They will now go back and do a more concrete check. They'll go and probably have a conversation with you. This lasts maybe about an hour or 2 hours, and they're finding out more information about you. And this is probably the one tiny part where they're going to try and sell you on life insurance and critical illness insurance and so and so and so. But it's a vital conversation to be had. Then the broker will go away after you agree on what the terms are. Are you looking for a five-year fix? Are you looking for a 3-year fix? Are you looking for a 2-year fix? It depends what you're looking for, and that's the job of a broker, to go back and forth and find what's the best situation for you. Is it a leasehold building? Is it a freehold building? These are the conversations you can have with your broker, because remember this, you are paying them. So they're happy to have a conversation because they want to get paid. So you've put an offer in, offer's been accepted, you go back to your broker goes into a little bit more detail, and then they promise you that they're going to go and submit your request to the bank. So to whoever you've chosen to provide you with the mortgage, or whoever's offering the best rates for you and your circumstance. So now at this point, you've got to get yourself a conveyancer. So you've got to get yourself a conveyancing company. Now this is going to set you back around $1,500. Their job is actually very simple. It's to do the legal side of stuff. Let me read you an official definition of what they do. For the buyer, a conveyancer will prepare, clarify, and lodge documents, e.g. the contract of sale and memorandum of transfer. They will do the research of the property and the certificate of title, and they'll check the easements, types of title, and any other information that needs addressing. So they are a vital part of your journey. So you will have to fork out that money. Now, this is an important part to say. There are more costs to pay outside of the deposit you put down. So you've got to budget anything from £2,500 to £5,000 extra in terms of the fees allocated or associated with purchasing your property. So you've got your deposit and then you've got your fees. Now we've just spoken about one of them, which is your conveyancing fees, and then the second fee is likely to be your broker fees. So now you're going to be in the process of securing insurance. You're going to need insurance. Whether you decide to take the insurance from your broker, just bear in mind that they get a commission for recommending certain companies, so you might want to look outside of their recommendation. But one thing that I found quite important is many people don't get life insurance. And many people say they'll get round to it at one point. The truth is, we never get round to it. So this might be a good opportunity for you to end up getting your life insurance because your broker is recommending it. Not saying it's going to be the cheapest, because remember, they get paid to recommend that company. So you might want to use someone else. But again, if you don't use the one that's been recommended by your broker, will you ever get around to sorting it out? But as I said, it's very important, and they go through this in detail with you. Obviously, they give you a sales spiel and they want to sell you this and they sell you this package and that package. But it's also very important to listen to it. There are things such as life insurance, critical illness. For example, if something happens in the workplace and you're not able to work for a long time, or you can't work, certain insurance policies will cover your mortgage payments. For example, if you lose your leg, touch wood, you don't lose your leg, and you can't work ever again, certain policies will pay out the remainder of your mortgage. So these are things to actually consider. So again, I will do another video another time and talk to you about it. Guys, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. If you have any questions, make sure you are popping them below, and I will try my best to get round to them at a later stage. So in the meantime, in the background, your solicitor is doing checks. So they're making sure that the property is mortgageable, they're making sure that the property is suitable, that you're not being blindsided, that you're not being sold a piece of poo, that the house is actually what it says on the tin. That's what's happening in the background. They're going to do checks for flood. They're going to do checks for planning permission to check whether the planning permission has been granted and whether it's been done according to the plans in place. They're going to check the lease conditions. They're going to do a search for radon. They're going to check for land contamination. These are things you can't do yourself. So it makes sense to pay the $1,500 as part of that entire process. At this stage, you're going to be working on a completion date. Just because the mortgage has been granted doesn't mean you're going to take the keys and move into your property tomorrow. You've got to agree on a completion date, and you will be told by your solicitors when you are nearing the conversation for the completion date. This is actually very important. So I'm going to talk to you very serious about this. If you want your property deal to go through, if you want to move into your house soon rather than later, you're going to have to do one important thing, which I hate doing, but it's now part and parcel of it. You've got to be willing to chase your solicitor on a weekly basis. Solicitors are busy. Some of them are lazy. Some of them are what we call off the shelf, which means you're actually using a company that has multiple people doing small, tiny parts of your sale, which in my opinion is very ineffective, because someone does one part and then it gets passed to this person and it gets passed to this person and it gets passed to this person and it gets passed to this person, and then we go round and round and round and nothing gets done and it's just dragged out. Alternatively, you want to find a solicitor in-house that's going to handle this from stage 1 to stage 10. So that's a very important lesson as well. Don't go for an off-the-shelf solicitor that compartmentalizes your entire sale. Find someone that's going to do the entire process for you. I'll give you an example of one of my purchases. It was done by an off-the-shelf company, which essentially means one person dealt with this, someone else dealt with this. But if this person was off work on annual leave for 2 weeks, then nothing could be passed on to the next person. And if this person decides to take their annual leave, then it delays the next thing and delays and delays and delays. So at this point, once you've chased your solicitor, they're going to come back to you with some back and forth. Maybe it might give them the kick up the bum to actually get things moving as well. So just remember, keep chasing, keep putting pressure on them. They're not going to get angry. They always need, and they like that push. They don't like it, but they need that push. Then you start having a conversation. You sign a few documents, and you will now be encouraged to send your deposits to your solicitor. Now this part is very important. Please pay attention. Before you send any money to anyone, you've got to understand this big massive scam that's been going around for a long time. Before you send any money to your solicitor, before you send your deposit to your solicitor, you want to make sure you call them on the phone first. You will get an email from them saying, hey, use this link to make the payment for your deposit. Or here are our bank details, please transfer your deposit. Now bear in mind, your deposit is a lot of money. So you want to be very, very cautious. What I always recommend is you call them and you reconfirm the bank details if you are doing a bank transfer. Reconfirm every single letter and every single number if you are doing a bank transfer. So let me give you an understanding of some of the scams that are going around. What scammers do is that many a times they might intercept your solicitor's email. So you're about to send 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, 50,000 pounds as your deposit to your solicitor. And this is the email that you've been getting a series of emails from. The scammer will infiltrate their email, and then they will divert the funds to another account. So that what they will say to you is, hey, I know it's time to pay your deposit. By the way, we should let you know that our banking details have changed. So here's the new banking details. And you, because it's coming from a trusted email that you've been emailing back and forth with your solicitor, you're going to send that money to that account. But that account is not really their account because the scammer or the fraudster has infiltrated their account. So as I've mentioned before, the best thing to do is to call them on the phone and have them on the phone as you make the transfer. Confirm with them that this is the bank details. Confirm with them that they are the ones that sent it to you. Alternatively, make the payment over the phone. Make the payment over the phone. Call the company and say, hey, can you accept payment over the phone? And be willing to cover the fees associated with taking a payment over the phone. It might cost you an extra £100 just to make that payment over the phone. But hey, nothing beats you protecting yourself and your investment. Then you'll start having a conversation about exchanging the contracts. Now, it's very important to understand what exchanging contracts means. Up until you exchange contracts, you could say, hey ho, do you know what? I've changed my mind. I would rather stay in my mum's house and sleep on the sofa. I'm not ready to buy a house. Up until this stage, now remember, we've gone through so much. Up until the exchange of contracts, you are allowed to change your mind. Yes, you probably wouldn't get your fees back from your solicitors. You might be able to ask them that, hey, you've only done X amount of work. Can you maybe put a hold on my account, and then I'll be able to use the rest of the money when I decide to purchase later on, or when I purchase another property. Again, most likely you will lose that money. But up until you sign the documents to exchange, you are allowed to pull out of that deal. So you can change your mind. But once you sign this document, you are not officially the owner yet, because you are the owner when the deed is transferred to you, but you cannot pull out of the contract. You have exchanged. At this point, the seller can pop some champagne bottles, they can relax, they know that their property is going to be bought. Now, I want to show you something. Even when the contract is exchanged, based on extenuating circumstance, based on life, you can still pull out of that deal. You can still pull out of that purchase. However, in this case, there are going to be consequences. Remember, pre or before exchange, there are no consequences. You just lose the money you've paid for certain things, for certain services that have probably been rendered. But once you sign the contract, there are now consequences for pulling out of the deal. Now, I've heard and I've read of many situations where people have pulled out at the last minute after they've exchanged, and it's cost them $20,000 to $50,000. In some cases, it could be over £100,000. So you've got to bear in mind this. There are going to be penalties and there are going to be costs associated with you pulling out of a deal once you have exchanged. I can, if you want me to do a video on that at a later date. So be very cautious, be very comfortable. Know that you are going ahead, and if you know that you're 100% going ahead, then sign the documents for exchange. At this point, you're going to get a completion date. So you're going to say, okay, we've exchanged. I want to complete in the next 3 days. I want to complete in the next 10 days. I want to complete in the next 1 week. So you've got to have that completion date in mind. Completion usually means the day you sign that contract and the property belongs to you. Then you can start enjoying and popping some champagne bottles. So at this point, your solicitor will request the money from the bank, because you sign a document that says, hey, I give my solicitors full permission to contact my bank and draw down the funds. Once you sign that document, then the solicitor will be able to get the rest of the money, transfer that money to the seller, and you are pretty much home and dry. After that, guess what happens? Have a guess what happens? Have a guess what happens next. Hey, you're a property owner. And you can celebrate and you can hold your keys up on Instagram and say, hey, look at me, I'm a property owner. But as I mentioned before, it takes some time. So guys, thank you so much. If you got some value out of that, make sure you do me the biggest favor ever, because these videos take a long time. Just remember, I bought my first property a long time ago, so I had to do some actual research to get this stuff in front of you guys. So let me know if you'd like me to do one on how to buy your first buy-to-let property or your first investment property. In fact, let me know if you'd like me to do a video on the different types of property investments that you can probably start yourself. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Make sure you like, make sure you comment. It helps the algorithms and it helps for more people to see my video. But do me a favor. Be bold, be strong, take action. I'll catch you soon.